Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to the third Spring 2021 update. So here we go again, another spring update for you. And yeah, it's going to be a bit of a solar special, this one. So we're going to be looking at springs around the sort of time we're in at the moment in the solar cycle. Probably most of them like a couple of years into the solar cycle. So, like the second spring of the solar cycle, if you like. And I shall get on with that for you very shortly. Big thanks to Terry Scully for sorting out all of the years for us for this one. And as I say, I shall get on with that for you in a moment. Just to say that the second video coming up later on today will be the Sunny Roundup. GavsWeatherVids Sunny Roundup will be the second video for you over lunchtime or just after lunch, perhaps. And I'm then going to be live streaming from 6 o'clock. We'll have our Sunday night live stream, Sunday evening live stream. So we'll check in, see how we're all doing. And I suppose we'll be looking for beastly Easterlies into February on our live stream, probably. And that will be coming up, as I say, from 6 o'clock. Right, so I said thank you to Terry. Thank you so much to Terry Scotty for all the help with this spring update. Thank you so much to Rich for the amazing GavsWeatherVids Spring Updates 2021 GIF. I think it's like the best GIF ever. Really, this with a cute little bunny. And then I've got some news about the bunny. We're going to have a Name the Bunny competition. And I'll explain all about that at the end of the video. So hang around to the end of the video. And I shall explain how we're going to do this. But we are going to name the bunny. I think the bunny's got to have a name. So we shall get on with that at the end of the video. I'm feeling rather giddy tonight. It's almost like a GavsWeatherVids Friday night live stream. So name the bunny at the end of the video. I explain all about that at the end. Right, better get serious. We've got serious stuff to do here. Just to say that the spring update will be placed on the spring updates page with a written summary. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm off again. Gav's off again. I'm so sorry, everybody. Oh dear. Right, let's get serious. So yes, just to say that I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm off again. Calm down, Gav. Calm down. Okay. So just to say that the spring update. I'm gonna have to pause the video. I'm so sorry. Okay, we're back, and I've got myself under control now, hopefully. So just to say that this could be quite a long video with all of the long-range stuff. So this video will be placed on the spring updates page with a written summary, and I should probably get it for you tomorrow, I would have thought, on Monday at GavsWeatherVids.com. So yeah, have a look at that on Monday. What else I've got to say? I think that's pretty much it. The whole thing's fallen apart, really, hasn't it? So we better get on, I think, with this third spring 2021 update. So thank you to Terry, thank you to Richard. This is going to be placed on the spring updates page. That's pretty much everything that I have to tell you. Right, okay, so let's do this then. So as I say, we're talking about solar activity for this one. So we know we're early on in solar cycle 25. We're around 2 years in to the solar cycle now. Well, this is like the second spring of the solar cycle, really. So this is from solarham.net, showing that we have got sunspots today, but solar activity is at very low levels. It's a slow start to solar cycle 25. So most of these springs are going to be like the second springs of the solar cycle. Now there are one or two that may overlap. So we may have like a double 2 years, just depending on where the solar minimum and the start of the next solar cycle begins with those solar cycles. Generally, if like the solar cycle begins in the middle of the year, or the middle of a year, the new solar cycle begins in the middle of a year, then you will have like an overlap. So you have to put in 2 springs or 2 seasons, really, because this applies to any other season as well. But most of these years are just like the second like the second spring of the solar cycle. Right, so the first one is 1845. This one looks like it's a cold and unsettled spring, with below average heights over and to the east of the country and to the north as well. Above average heights up towards Iceland, Greenland, and winds coming in from a east or northeast direction. Quite cold and wintry for our first spring, a delayed spring, that one. Our next spring is 1857, with below average heights to our south, above average heights to our north. And this is a very unsettled spring, not as cold as the other one, despite the northern blocking. I think this could actually be a rather milder spring, but the thing with this, although it could have cold weather early on, I suppose, the thing with this is that I think it's a very unsettled spring, with that trough of low pressure potentially bringing quite a lot of rain. Next spring is 1868. So this one is Atlantic driven and westerly. This is before a hot summer, of course. This one has high pressure reaching from the Azores into western and southwest Europe, and low pressure. Low pressure is up to the north. So we've got a strong westerly wind. It's an unsettled spring, driest in the south, wettest in the north, and a mild spring as well. Now this is one of the overlap situations I was telling you about. So we also have a spring of 1869 here as well. This one is a colder spring. After the mildest winter on record, we do get a colder spring. With blocking in the North Atlantic going up towards Greenland, and winds tend to be coming in from a north to northeast direction. So after the mildest winter on record, the CET of in 1868, 1869, we then go through to quite a cold spring. Then we have 1880. The spring of 1880 is looking like this. This is a rather dry but colder spring. High pressure centered around Iceland, probably very easterly sort of spring. Of course, spring is transitional, so that kind of pattern in March is going to be cold, but in May will probably be relatively warm and dry, if anything. So you have to bear that in mind about spring. Of course, it's a transitional season. Overall, a dry, but probably quite chilly spring, that one. Then we have 1891, which just looks very, very wet, exceptionally wet spring, potentially this one, with deep low pressure covering virtually the whole of Europe, virtually obliterating Europe, blocking up towards Greenland as well. So not only very wet, I suspect it is a very wet spring, probably quite a cold spring as well. But the main thing with that is very, very unsettled. They have the spring of 1903 as like the second spring within that particular solar cycle. This is also a very unsettled spring. This is more westerly, so I imagine quite a mildy sort of spring, but certainly very wet and very Atlantic driven, to say the least. Then we have a spring of 1915. This one looks rather colder, with low pressure over Scandinavia, high pressure as a mid-Atlantic ridge going up towards southern Greenland. So you could see quite a lot of northerly influences with that particular spring. Quite unsettled and quite a cold spring in 1915. 1925 is our next spring. This one also looking very, very unsettled with low pressure across most of northern and western Europe. I think there is a trend here. It's probably towards unsettled weather with these springs. However, this one changes things around a little bit, actually, having said that. This is the spring of 1935. This one has high pressure towards Greenland and Iceland, low pressure over northeastern and eastern Europe. Winds are in probably from quite an easterly direction. Remember, spring is an easterly season at the best of times, especially in May, which is our most easterly month of the year. So again, you have to bear in mind with that, in that sort of pattern in March, you're going to be potentially very cold and wintry. In May, that will be very typical. That's a very typical sort of May pattern with high pressure to the north and winds in from the east. And it won't be overly cold either in May, but in March that will be a cold scenario. But next spring, this is the first properly dry and quite warm spring that we've seen, I think. So this is 1945. This one has high pressure across most of Western Europe, actually, low pressure out in the Atlantic. We bring up a lot of southerly winds during the spring of 1945. And so it is quite a warm spring and relatively dry as well. Spring 1956 shows up next. Quite an anticyclonic spring, this one. High pressure over country, lots of low pressure away to the north. All this low pressure up here descends into the summer of 1956. We don't want to see that happening this year, unless you like washout summers, I suppose. But for the spring itself, actually not too bad. Quite a bit of high pressure. Of course, this does follow on from exceptionally cold February in 1956. But the spring actually of 1956, I don't think it is too bad, really. They have a spring of 1966 with high pressure around Spain, low pressure to our northwest. This is just a rather unsettled Atlantic-driven sort of average type spring, quite wet, quite unsettled, relatively mild spring as well. Got a spring of 1978 showing up. This is quite interesting that this appears. So this one is quite a coldish, sort of cool type, wet spring. We're blocking to the north. Low pressure is over to the south and to the east. Country winds are in from the east. Now, the reason I say this is interesting, that the winter of 77-78 is very much a teaser winter. Very much a teaser winter for 77-78. I think we're having a little bit of a teaser winter this winter. And this winter gets coldest actually in February of 1978. So the winter of 77-78 is at its coldest late in February, and just relatively cold, wet, miserable sort of weather goes on into the spring. It's a very poor summer as well, and it's all sort of setting up what will be a very, very cold and snowy winter for the next winter, which is 78-79. And there we see from a solar perspective the teaser winter and also cold, wet spring of 78. From a solar perspective, that's there for where we are in the solar cycle at the moment. I say no more than that. So I don't want to get myself into trouble, but I think you probably know what I'm hinting at there. Right, next spring is 1988. This is quite a cool spring. Actually, it does have a little bit of snow. The winter of 87-88 is very mild. This one, spring 88, has high pressure towards Greenland. Does bring in the winds from the north a little bit. So that one, quite a cool spring. And yes, there's some snow through that spring as well. After, again, a very, very mild and wet winter. Spring 1997 shows up next. So this one is a relatively dry and mild, or actually quite warm spring, certainly for March and April of 1997, although May does turn colder and wetter. But overall, that's a warm, dry spring, particularly so in March and April. This is another 2-year sort of scenario. So then we have the spring of 1998 showing up as well. This one is quite a cold spring, high pressure to the west, low pressure to the east, winds are in from the north. Interesting thing with this spring is as far as it's gone, again, from an exceptionally mild winter, the 87-88, but the spring becomes much colder, particularly so for April of 1998, which does have a lot of snow and has flooding rains as well, of course, around Easter of 1998, and May all flips around again, and we get to May and we have a very warm and dry May. And then finally, we have the spring of 2010. Of course, this far is on from the cold winter of 09-10. So this one with northern blocking extending down from Greenland into North Atlantic, winds from the northeast. It's cold spring, or certainly cold early on in the spring. I think it does get a little bit milder later on, but generally that's quite a dryish but also pretty cold spring in 2010. It's a follow on from like the cold winter of 09-10. Of course, that's the last year then that we have the second spring of the solar cycle. Right, let's pull all of that together then. So this is how all Marches combined are looking with the second springs of the solar cycles. And generally I'd signal for blocking actually in these Marches. High pressure from the mid-Atlantic going up towards Greenland. Low pressure tends to be extending, let's change colour. Low pressure tends to be extending down from a northern into central Europe. Winds are in from a north to northeasterly direction. So cold potential with those Marches. All Aprils combined look very unsettled. Still with a little bit of blocking, but weaker signal. High pressure also down towards Spain. The thing with this is low pressure coming off the Atlantic and combining with low pressure across northern Europe. So it's generally quite wet, really, for those Aprils. Quite unsettled. Aprils and the all Mays combined don't look very good either in the second year of the solar cycle. So this one again largely wetter for much of northern western Europe, higher pressure up towards Greenland. It's quite a coolish and potentially quite unsettled signal for those Mays. All springs combined in the second year of the solar cycle look like this. So again, a blocking signal around Greenland, Iceland, low pressure across northern Europe. Winds tend to be in from the north. Does indicate that there is cold potential with quite a few of the springs. If we narrow things down to just looking at the years post 1950, this is how all Marches combined are looking. A very narrow range of this: 1956, 1966, 1978, 1988, 1987, 1997, 1998, and 2010. So for these Marches, it's rather different thing actually. Largely drier and quite mild, with high pressure almost centred over top of the UK and Western Europe actually. So a lot of bow springs post 1950 are relatively dry and pretty mild as well, you would have thought. The Aprils look colder though, all Aprils combined post 1950 tends to have high pressure around Greenland, low pressure again over Scandinavia and also backing into the Atlantic. Jet streams push southwards, winds probably coming in from the north or from the east, generally quite a cold signal for those Aprils. All Mays combined post 1950 in the second year of the solar cycle looks drier and warmer again, with high pressure reaching in from the Azores this time. Low pressures away to the northwest, jet streams push north as well. A relatively dry and warm signal for these Mays. And all springs combined post 1950 again has a mid-Atlantic ridge heading up towards Greenland. Low pressure tends to be to our east, so a lot of dry and anti-cyclonic weather. You know, each month is rather different. March is relatively dry and mild, April's cold and wet, and May it goes back to being relatively dry and mild again. So I'm not sure how much value there is in the all spring combined. And then finally, the last thing I'll show you is the years that Terry is rating like the highest with this. And these are the springs that are in the seasons that are odd numbered solar cycle seasons. So like solar cycle 25 is an odd numbered solar cycle. So 25 is odd number, of course. So the springs that we're rating highest, and these will be weighted highest in our spring forecast, are the springs that are going from odd to even solar cycles. So that is the spring of 1845, 1868, which of course is an even number, but 1869 too, 1891, 1915, 1935, 1956, 1978, 1997, and 1998. This is how they come out then. Tends to have blocking in all Marches combined to the north around Greenland. Low pressure tends to be across northern western Europe. Winds are in from like a northeasterly direction. So we go back to a colder signal for those Marches. All Aprils combined look like that. Again, higher pressure up towards Greenland, lower pressure over to the east of the country. Again, back to a colder signal for those Aprils, but we're weighting highest. And also all Mays combined back to a cooler, colder, wetter signal for the all Mays combined in the years that we are weighting highest for this, which is the odd to even solar cycle years. And all springs combined, again, it's not a surprise really, but we find that we get high pressure up towards Greenland, lower pressure across northern and western Europe, and winds in from the northeast. I have made a mistake there because I've got 1916 rather than 1915, but 1 year, you know, within the range shouldn't make a great deal of difference to the overall outcome anyway, I wouldn't have thought, but there is a little bit of a mistake there before you start pointing it out in the comments. But yeah, the years we're weighting highest, you know, looks like we favour like a colder, wetter spring, so that is something to bear in mind. Okay, so very important update. This one, it will be, you know, it will be a significant part of our spring forecast, which we will be releasing on Sunday, the 28th of February, last day of February, and last day of Mid-Tropical Winter 2020-21, of course. Right, so that's it. We'll have another spring update for you next week. Now, I've got to tell you about Name the Bunny, haven't I? So, I've decided we're going to have a little bit of a Name the Bunny competition. So, in the comments, I want you to name the bunny. So, if you can think of a good name for the bunny, then please, post a comment and drop a name for the bunny. Now, I suppose we're going to have quite a few. So we're probably going to have to do a poll for this. Or we may, what we could do, actually, like the giveaways that we do with the Wheel of Choice thing, the winners' names, I should say. So if we have, you have 5 or less names in the comments, what we'll do is we'll just do a poll, I think, and see which one is the winner. But if we have more than 5, because you can only have 5 entries with a poll on YouTube in the community page, so you can only do 5. So if we have more than 5, we'll have to find a way of picking the winner. I think then we will probably do a wheel of names. How does that sound in a live stream? I don't know if it'll be tonight's live stream. I'll probably do it Wednesday or something. It's just a bit of fun, just a bit of laugh. But we've got to name a bunny, haven't we? It's such a cute little bunny. But we've got to name a bunny, I think. So yeah, come up with a good name for the bunny. Leave it in the comments, and we will name the bunny. This bunny is going to be named. I promise you, that's going to happen. Either as a poll or on Wheel of Names in a live stream. Okay, so what do you think about that, everybody? Let me know. Let me know in the comments what you think. No doubt we'll be discussing this in our live stream tonight as well. Right, this video will be placed on the Spring 2021 updates page. There'll be a written summary that goes with it as well, and I shall get that up for you tomorrow, I would have thought. We're going to have GavsWeatherVids Sunny Roundup coming up around or just after lunch, and then we'll be live streaming after 6, so I shall see you at 6. Name the bunny, please, and we'll have another spring update for you next Sunday. For this one, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.